You're listening to the Neil Lamptey Show. My name's Joey, and I'm joined by Paul.
All right, mate.
And Neil.
Hello.
And to give us some Crawley chat, Laurie.
Hi, Joey.
Hello. A win that I don't think any of us particularly expected, except possibly from you, Neil, who doesn't believe
definitely
in
from
such
Neil.
thing as, as the past or anything like that. What about moments of the week from people, please? Let's go for Neil first.
Well, I was going to go for winning, but then I watched back the post-match interview that Robbins did with Jeff Foster, and then I realised, yeah, that's a good moment of the week, because he really gave him some grief, didn't he? Did anybody else watch it?
No,
Yeah,
but a couple of people mentioned it. Can you explain what happened?
It was all right to start with, but then I think Robbins just gradually grew more and more weary with Jeff's sort of inability to talk, and that really seemed to get on his nerves. And then Jeff just got really sort of flustered and started getting people's names wrong, so he called him Leon Kelly, which Robbins corrected, and it was pretty awkward, but at the same time it was just quite funny to see that sort of the almost lack of respect that Robbins has for Jeff entirely. And Jeff just was. It was one of his worst interviews, let's put it that way. He just wasn't asking anything. He was just... He just
That's
kept
a
saying,
low bar.
Well, tell me about it. You just watch it back if you get a chance. And it was just kind of him scrambling for sort of words that connect other words. And it was just
He was
weird.
like a nervous intern. It was like his first day, and he was scared. Because I've never really been into listening to post-match interviews, but I'm into it now because we're actually trying to play for the playoffs and stuff. So I've started listening to them. And so everyone knows this Jeff Foster guy. I don't really know him very much. And so I mentioned it on Twitter. And you said, Neil, oh, that's Jeff Foster. He's really bad at his job. Like, really bad.
I mean, it's only
when he
40 years
interviewed
worth.
Ponticelli looked embarrassed for him because he asked this question that didn't even end in a question mark. It was just like kind of conjunctions that then tailed off. And Ponticelli was like, I don't really choose to do media, but I suppose it's okay. It was so weird. It was like he was hammered or like, I don't know, like crying.
Was it Ed who described him like being interviewed by Mist?
Yes.
That's exactly right, yeah.
And it's like, since then, it's almost been like, you know, when something just encapsulates something so perfectly, you almost don't even think about it anymore. It's just, yeah, that's almost sort of nailed it for me.
It's perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, that's it, isn't it? I can't think of any other examples. It's like, yeah, that's just 100% exactly correct. Let's move on and never discuss Jeff Foster ever again. But yeah.
Oh, let's discuss Jeff Foster again. I think that...
Yeah.
we'd be missing out hours
I'd like
of quality,
to ask a question.
But it works in two ways, doesn't it? Because when managers are rubbish, he never asks anything interesting either. I think it's just... I said before, it must be really easy to manage Cov, because if you're doing badly, no one questions you. If you're doing well, still no one really tries to get to the root of what's going well. It's just, and one of the reasons for that is Jeff Foster, and I get the feeling he's too pleasant to ask difficult questions, and he's not quick enough on his feet to actually come across as interesting.
But it's not that, is it? Is that as soon as they act belligerently towards the club, they'll just shut them out. I think they're in a bit of on a hiding to nothing, really, the media sort of outlets, because they want the sort of unfettered access that they're given, and they get quite a lot of coverage and hours out of their sort of a lot of content out of them, don't they? But if they were going in there and being like, why have you picked that team, you nutcase? They just won't interact with them, will they? And so
would they be like, if he
that.
comes and asks questions about Sisu after the game, they'd be like, all right, we're not going to let them interview. But if they ask like, why have you played Bayliss there? Like, he didn't look particularly at home playing at number 10. Surely that's an okay question to ask. Like, you should be expecting that kind of question. But
to be fair,
if you can ask, carry on.
Basically, it was the same as he asked about Barrett last week, didn't he? And then sort of Robbins gave an explanation. It wasn't particularly the world's most difficult question. It was like, why did he play Barrett? And he answered it. And it's like, sometimes it doesn't have to be a probing question. As Laurie says, all you have to do is like, why did you pick? What made you think Bayliss was going to be a success there? And then if he explains it and goes, well, I thought this and this, it's like, that's a fair question.
Yeah,
the amount of times we've sort of not even asked basic questions like, why are you playing that particular round peg in that particular square hole today?
You can
you know.
You can say what you want, but you can't accuse Jeff Foster of not asking basic questions.
I think that's exactly what we're doing.
Paul, what was your moment of the week?
My moment of the week was last Tuesday when, as we remember discussing the pod last week, I was slightly nervous about the Tuesday game, and then both Swindon and Mansfield have failed to take advantage of their game in hand.
Oh yeah.
And as the season goes on, I'm pretty certain that in my top 5 Coventry City People of the Year is going to be Steve Evans. And
What a legend.
basically since he's left Mansfield, they've imploded. And then I still don't understand why they appointed David Flitcroft, but that seems to have the wheels have fallen off Swindon as well. So Steve Evans leaving has basically screwed up 2 of our potential promotion rivals. So well done, Steve.
Do you remember when he was in the running to get the job when Mowbray got it?
Yes.
I said then that I expected that he could get us out of League Two. I just didn't know he'd do it like this.
The most convoluted way possible.
I think he could quite realistically, because I think he's got Peterborough charging up the table, hasn't he? Or have they tailed off ever so slightly? I'm sure that I'd be proved massively wrong. If I was him this season and he was successful with Peterborough, I'd be claiming all sorts of victories. I'd be getting all sorts of promotions. Yeah, yeah. Although all jokes aside, big fat idiot. Laurie, moment of the week.
Well, yeah, it was Ponticelli's second goal was pretty special, but I think my favourite moment was after the game when Maxime was kind of wandering over to the fans, and then Johnson comes up behind him, and they both seem to like collectively discuss the divot in the pitch, which is nowhere near where Max had a shot from. But they pick up this random bit of mud, and Maxime's pointing at it like, "See, this is it." And Johnson's like holding it like, I don't believe you. I
saw no divots.
I saw no divots. And everyone who was still standing in the stand, like applauding them, was kind of like laughing and smiling with relief because we could laugh about it. But that could have been very, very different. But yeah, it was a relief to be able to laugh about that miss.
I only watched the highlights back, so my moment of the week is just the difficulty of Biamu, because, and I'm sure you're going to go on to either disprove this or to prove it, but that it did seem very much from the highlights that we stepped up a gear significantly, and he had a really big hand in our improvement in the second half, at least as suggested by the highlights. But then, of course, there's that miss that you're referring to, and you just think it's very, very, very difficult with him, isn't it, at the minute? But yeah, is that a fair assessment of how things panned out? Did he make a really significant impact, Laurie?
Yeah, he was brilliant, because I've got a bit of, not flack, but like a few remarks on Twitter from saying that we were very lucky on Saturday, and it was actually quite a worrying performance in a lot of ways. And he did really change it. He came on the 67th minute, and we'd spent a lot of time kind of huffing and puffing. Well, both sides were huffing and puffing and without any kind of cohesion. But you saw what he did for Ponticelli's goal. It was just brilliant. And the link up between him and McNulty for that is something that McNulty and Johnson are kind of trying to get to that point, but haven't quite managed it yet. But so that connection is invaluable. And then Maxime's ability to kind of drive diagonally, hold it up, and just play the perfect pass for Ponticelli. Although it doesn't require vision, but it just required releasing it at the right time. Although I don't think anyone was expecting Ponticelli to just back himself to hammer one into the far corner. But yeah, I thought he was excellent when he came on. But Robbins obviously doesn't think so. And we can just keep on having that debate, can't we, about him being a more effective impact player, whether he doesn't like starting games, I don't know. But I don't think playing him for one half at Notts County is a particularly fair test to determine whether he can't start games anymore.
I think the main question you've got to ask yourself is, why is he coming on? And normally it's because Jonathan Clark-Harris isn't playing particularly well, and we have to take him off.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that you could go on to go, no, Johnson Clark-Harris is brilliant against Crawley. It's been a while since I saw Johnson Clark-Harris have a good game I'm beginning to think it might have been Mansfield the last time I saw him have a good game. Since then, I've been really, really underwhelmed by him. And I mean, when him and McNulty play, McNulty very rarely scores, and he doesn't even look like scoring. I just don't think that's a partnership that is particularly. I think Max seems better for McNulty and better for the team.
I think it was telling as well that Johnson's best moment of the game on Saturday was when Crawley, which they made a habit of doing, just gave us the ball about 25 yards from goal and said, "Go on, do your worst." And so Johnson, for once, had no one in front of him, when normally what he does is he manages to take the ball down, faces his man up, and then has to make a decision, has to work out whether to pass or whether to run at his man, and he often just kind of tramples on the ball and loses it. On this occasion, he had space to run into, which he did, and then just battered his chance from 25 yards. So it was a good shot, but if the keeper had let that in, it would have been a complete clanger. And I suppose you could say that was a good moment of the game for Johnson Clark-Harris, but that was it. He managed to semi-capitalise on a chance that was handed to him on a plate, and all we got was a corner. I don't think it's really enough. Admittedly, he was playing as part of an unfamiliar front three, but it's still, it wasn't impressive.
Talk us through that overall team selection that baffled a lot of people at the start.
Yeah, had me, because I don't often spend the first 10 minutes trying to work out what's going on, or even I looked at the team in the pub before and was like, I wonder what this is going to be. And it was relatively clear that it was a 4-2-3-1. So we had Willis came back in, Doyle and Kelly playing as DMs, with McNulty and Ponticelli kind of switching wings, one on the left, one on the right, and then Bayliss in a number 10 behind Johnson Clark-Harris. So in many ways, you could say that solves a lot of problems, because you get to play Doyle and Kelly together. You don't have to put Kelly out on the right-hand side. You get Bayliss in a more advanced role, but you're then playing one of the league's best finishers in a position where he's going to have to do a lot of defending against left wingers or right wingers, which just feels really, really wasteful when he's in your own penalty area quite a lot. Ponticelli is by no stretch of the imagination a winger. He doesn't cross particularly well. He does those crosses that are just kind of aimed in the right direction, but they're never kind of whipped, which isn't his fault. He did his best, but everyone will come out of that game saying Ponticelli was fantastic, and he did his job. He scored 2 great strikers' goals, but people who are saying we've solved the right midfield problem are absolutely wrong. They're bonkers, because he did not play well as right winger. I won't have that. He played admirably, considering he'd been asked to do that by Robbins. But we could play that game another 5 times, and he might not score either goal, and then everyone's like, "Well, we're back to square one, aren't we?" McNulty is brilliant, because he's just a very good player at this level. So you play him there. He kind of got caught out a bit for the goal, but he set up Ponticelli's goal. He's just really good on the ball. I don't need to tell you about his qualities, but his qualities are still useful wherever you play him across that front three. It just seems a bit unfair on him that he's now getting turned into a utility man because he's so talented. But I suppose if we still score 2 goals, then it's fine. And Bayliss, that's the main issue with the formation, because I kind of thought, well, this could be great. Bayliss now is going to have the freedom to play even further forward, and he'll get to run at people. But it didn't really work out like that. He was playing really advanced, and he was really free. But it meant that Doyle and Kelly weren't really finding him as much as they should have been. But I think that's because he almost wasn't dropping into the pocket enough. So when he did get the ball, he had his back to goal, and he ended up playing it then back to where the ball had come from. The one occasion he did get it kind of in the right position, but he still had to turn his man and kind of skin his man in a kind of Baylissy way. The way he doesn't really skin them, he trips through them and kind of gets a nutmeg or something. And that led to him in the perfect position, driving at their back four, slipped in a ball to McNulty, but McNulty had gone offside. So the problem with this position, and it'll be interesting to see what you guys think, but the problem with this position now for Bayliss is that he's in the right part of the pitch, but he's not facing in the right direction. He ended up being almost anonymous for massive parts of the game, and then got taken off because it wasn't working. But it was very annoying because I kind of wanted him to just go back in centre midfield, because when he gets the ball in centre midfield, Doyle is right there behind him, and he knows that he can go forward and afford to lose it sometimes because Doyle will be there to mop it up. And because he's running from deeper, he gets that chance, that space to run into. He can like get his eye on the game and see the lay of the land. But when he's up there in number 10, he just didn't look particularly comfortable there. So yeah, it was frustrating. But by that point, we'd already scored. So we scored almost instantly. So I was like, well, what are my reservations about? This is the perfect formation. Why haven't we doing this all season? But then they scored a really good goal, actually. McNulty was out of position, but I mean, he's a striker, so you can't be angry at him for that.
I also think sometimes you just concede goals, don't you? And that, to me, I watched that back and I was just like, that's just a good goal. They moved the ball really quickly, found a person out wide, it was a good finish. I don't think I'd have been really castigating the players at half time if I was Robbins on that one. I just thought it was quite a well worked goal.
But do you know who you should be giving shit? Like some of the fans were giving shit. Whose goal do you reckon that fault was? Sorry,
well,
whose fault?
Obviously Lee Burge, I'm guessing.
Obviously Lee Burge, yeah.
Yeah.
No brainer. If they go in off the post, obviously the keeper can get that because that's perfect.
Exactly.
You have to save them. Yeah, I agree with you. It was a really nice little turn of play for them, and I wasn't really that sad because when they equalised in the 13th minute, you're like, well,
go and get another goal.
Scored now, yeah.
I sort of expected you to get another one anyway, so I'm not sure what difference it makes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so really not a lot happened until Maxime came on. Well, they had this unbelievable chance kind of at the start of the second half where just one of those lofted passes. I don't know where our defence had gone, but their lad just found himself completely free in the middle. Like, it wasn't as easy as Maxime's chance, but it was one of those ones when you're watching from the other end and you're only kind of 4 feet in the air. All you can see is a big open goal, their striker and your goalie, and you're like, there's no way they can't score this. And he just missed it, just completely missed the ball, which everyone seems to have forgotten because now it's a sensational away performance and Ponticelli was man of the match. But then Maxime came on after Reid had come on for Tom Bayliss. Robbins was getting grief for sitting down on the bench and not standing up. And Maxime just did what Maxime does. He did some great closing down, flustered the Crawley defence, who, like I said, have made a lot of errors in that game. They handed the ball over to us a few times. It was a classic Kelly moment. You guys probably remind me, it was Kelly who was it Newport, where he kind of got the ball, and maybe it was you saying it, Joe, and you're like, you want anyone in the world but Liam Kelly bearing down on goal in that position.
Oh, it was a Crew, wasn't it? Yeah, McNulty.
It was a Crew, that was it.
McNulty played him in, and yeah, it didn't look good, did it?
It was identical to that in many ways. It was like us pouncing on some sloppy defending. It opens up for Kelly, and again McNulty's there getting deja vu. Like, he's like, pass it. I know I'm in a worse position, but trust me, it's still better for me to have it.
Yeah.
And Kelly just did this kind of lemon curd drizzle of a kick, and the keeper was like, thank you very much. What was I worried about?
Made up for it, yeah, didn't he? When he set up Biamu.
He did. That was his lofted pass, wasn't it?
That was him setting all the impetus and everything. That was very good, I thought.
Unfortunately, setting up the one player on the pitch with a worse finishing record than
you
Kelly.
Kind of want to play the percentages, don't you? Think, right, 3 yards out, this will be all right. No, it didn't work. No.
He had a weird game, actually, Kelly, because there was a few times in that half where I lost my rag at him because he just seemed to wuss out of tackles a few times. You could see him reconsidering a 50-50, and he bottled a few. And then 5 minutes later, he was absolutely flying through people. I just don't know what his criteria for when he commits to to a tackle is. So there was a few moments like that where he was a little bit frustrating, but overall he was good and he played some nice passes. But our goal was, we had a few other chances. Mark McNulty thought he was Ronaldo again. Jack Grimmer, don't know what he was doing in the 6-yard box, but he smashed one into the keeper's face. And we were building this head of steam. And you know how normally we build a head of steam and then it just dissipates and nothing happens. For once, we actually turned steam into, I don't know, tea. And Doyle played this pass. It was kind of like a lofted ball. And McNulty had 2 men around him, just instantly flicked it through to Biamu because he knew where he was. Biamu just ploughs towards the corner flag, kind of, which sounds bad, but it was a good thing. And looks up, realises he's got 2 men on his back, lays it into Ponticelli, who's in his favourite right wing position. And we were just in the perfect position, like behind the far post, lined up with Ponticelli. And I saw him shoot, and it takes such an important deflection, kind of just past the penalty spot off their defender, which you can't really see on the highlights. Because it's like filmed on someone's phone or such bad quality, but it just knocks it past the keeper's fingertips and in off that post. And yeah, it was a very, very good moment. And yeah, we could have had another one. Actually, they had a chance to equalise. They skinned Carl Reed at the end, and the ball fell to their man in the box. Kind of similar to how when Notts County hit the post last week, but he did an awful shot. And then I don't want to bore you with the Maxime miss again, but it was like, I kind of think he had to shoot first time, didn't he? But I could see myself missing one like that because the ball's going towards you and you're trying to kind of hit the ball in the same direction that it's going. So he's obviously got his foot too much round it. Do you think maybe he should have gone back in the other direction, taken a touch, and then just battered it that way?
I think just put it straight back the other way first time. Yeah. Just give it.
Because everyone's moving in that direction, aren't they?
Yeah, he's trying to go, like you say, he's trying to go with the ball. I don't know whether he lost his bearings or what. That might be really kind to him, but yeah, it just didn't seem like the one where he was trying to move with the ball. But I think just go back straight, give it a bit of power back where you came from. But easy for us to see.
I'd have scored it. All things considered, I'd have probably just blasted it straight into the top corner. Neil, what was your take on the game? You watched it as well, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a bit mystifying. The first was kind of obviously the team just after everything we've been saying the last couple of weeks about just trying to consolidate what we know and go with things that we know, and then he came up with this formation which we haven't played in months. You know, people all over the place. John Ponticelli on the right. I mean, I agree with pretty much everything Laurie says, especially around Bayliss. I mean, that's a great example of a good player. You're kind of trying to do what you think's best for that player, but when you think about him and you think about his qualities, it's all about how he travels with the ball, how he gets us from defence to attack, how he turns on it out. It's that stride, isn't it? And when you put him so far forward, you actually kind of nullify that element of his game, and then you leave him like Laurie says, pointing the wrong way. He needs to be driving on forward, and that's his game really. So it was it was a bold move. I can see why Robbins wanted to do that rather than stick him out on the right again, because that's somewhere where we've surely learned now that it just didn't suit him. But at the same time, I think that didn't suit him either. So I think he's got a bit of a conundrum now, because obviously he seems dead set that Kelly and Doyle are the ones that are going to see us through to the end of the season. He also seems dead set that Jordan Ponticelli should be playing. He said that himself. We've got to find a way to get him to the team. So he either sticks with that formation, which I don't particularly think. I don't think it worked that well. I mean, I think partially it was down to the players. I think there was quite a few players just not. They were getting into good positions and they weren't kind of executing the next step. So you could kind of say, well, maybe it wasn't the formation's fault, it was the players' fault. But it didn't quite work for me, and it kind of felt like a lot of guesswork as well. And we got the win, and that's great. And I don't want to overthink it too much, but there's still part of me that wants him to pick a team based on all the factors and all the things that we've learned so far over the last few months. And it's just kind of, there's something very unnerving about him selecting a team kind of that radical at this stage in the season. And you know what's going to happen next game. He's going to pretty much pick exactly the same team. Maybe he'll switch Johnson for Biamu, which I guess would make sense given the way that's all kind of worked out over the last few games. But I don't know quite how much that win the other day was down to us, or it was just because we won that match. If that doesn't make much sense, but we kind of just won in spite of ourselves, and that
makes perfect sense in my mind.
Yeah, and that's why I got it, because I was watching it and we weren't bad, but we weren't good. We didn't seem particularly coherent. There was lots of individual mistakes. Crawley weren't brilliant. We know you don't have to be brilliant to win matches, but if we're moving into this sort of playoff period and we've got these vital games, I don't want to be tossing the coin as to whether we're going to win or not. I'd like to feel a little bit more confident in what we're setting out there with. So, yeah, it was. I don't feel like I'm being negative. I'm just kind of being a little bit sort of realistic about how that performance went. And it wasn't. We won, and that's great, and we needed to win. And actually, given that we'd lost 2 in a row, win by all costs, absolutely brilliant. We've got. Was it 4 games left now, or 3?
4.
4 left now. So that, you just kind of hope that it becomes. Maybe he has stumbled across something, which with confidence and everything else, maybe a tweak with Biamu up front as well. He stumbled across something which is sort of sustainable. You don't know, but I don't feel entirely comfortable with it at the moment.
I don't think it's the last few games. I don't think are surprising in the sense that it feels very much like Robin's reverting to type, and I think that his type, the more we get to know him, is I think he wants the best 11 players he's got at his disposal out on the pitch, however he can get them out.
Yeah,
so I think that rather than it being about I want to play this way and I'm going to put square pegs in square holes. I'm watching Jordan Ponticelli. I think he can score some goals, so I'll put him in somewhere, and we'll just go from there. And there is an element to which I guess, at the minute, playing Ponticelli, Bayliss, Johnson, Clark, Harrison, McNulty, at least that means that, and I'm playing devil's advocate to a massive extent here, because you know that my preference would be to have a system and then to make it work, but at least that is a team with goals on the pitch, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I can absolutely see why he did what he did. I mean, he was scrambling for something, and like you say, when in doubt, play good players, and he did it. He kind of he put players on the pitch. He's obviously seen something in Ponticelli recently. He's trying to get him onto the pitch, and if you're going to get him in the only way he could do that really was to fiddle with the formation and put him out on the right. I mean, I never thought I'd see Jordan Ponticelli playing right back or standing in front of the central defence. But, he did that quite a bit. I mean, fair play to him. He's got a strong engine, that guy. He keeps going and he keeps running. And that is very much part of the battle at this stage in the season.
He never looked tired, did he? Never.
No. And that is fantastic for him. The fact that he was in his position, I'm not sure how much he would play that role before, but he as far as effort goes and just making sure he's putting in everything, it's fantastic. Positionally, don't really think he knew quite what he was doing, and that's not his fault. He was just trying his best to play well. Plus, he was able to put the ball in the net twice. That's 3 in 2 games. That vindicates much of this. It's just there's always that niggling doubt, isn't there, in the back of your mind, just quite how much of this is sort of circumstance, and we found a way to win, and when we come up against a team that's actually developed quite a strong sort of winning mentality, someone like Lincoln, who they may have lost the other day, but as far as sort of recent form goes and kind of a settled lineup goes, they're pretty sturdy now. So I would prefer us 4 weeks ago versus Lincoln today. I'd fancy that as a matchup. Us the other day versus Lincoln, I have no idea how we'll get on.
I feel very, very similar. Go on, Paul.
Well, one of my concerns is the fact the worry is you can go into these things and think, I finally stumbled on something. And by the sounds of it, Crawley weren't up for it in any way, shape or form. And I could be wrong, but...
No, you're absolutely right. Actually, none of us were.
And I think that's what worries me is the fact that a system I don't particularly, or the players I don't really trust for that system, probably could beat that Crawley side. My worry is if we get into the playoffs, I just think there are a lot of weaknesses and that teams could easily get at that system, basically just by pushing their fullbacks quite high up the pitch and attacking us. I think we're very exposed on the flanks, and I think teams could easily sort of bypass 2 or 3 of our best players, who I think in that system you're playing McNulty out of position, Bayliss out of position. You've got too many players who aren't overly comfortable. They might get more comfortable, but how good is McNulty ever going to be on the left wing in a 4-2-3-1 system? Probably never going to be that good. So I think it'd be interesting to go into the Stevenage game, who could be the same as Crawley, who might not turn up. We're only probably, if you look at the fixtures, if we win the next 2, we're probably definitely in the playoffs. We probably only need 2 victories anyway. Cause I mean, Mansfield's running is the easiest out of us, them, and Lincoln. Lincoln, I think, have got Wickham Wickham on Tuesday night. Lincoln's running is difficult. Out of the 3, is the most difficult. And I think ours, because we play Lincoln, and the easiest is Mansfield.
And Lincoln play Tuesday, Saturday as well, so they're going to be quite tired.
And they've got Accrington in there as well somewhere.
Yeah, but the other thing with Lincoln is, I think that they are a club on the momentum, aren't they? Did they get promotion? They got promoted last season.
Yeah.
They're a team, and they got quite far in the FA Cup last season. I can't imagine for them playing Saturday, Tuesday is going to be, I think they're probably used to that. I think they're a team who are very focused, very set. I don't think, they still worry me as a team that I don't think I'd like to play at any point in the playoffs. I think they're a team who manage to find ways to win. I think they will join. I think they will definitely get in the playoffs, and it would be either us or Mansfield. It's easy for us, isn't it? If we win on Friday night, Mansfield have to win at least 2 of the last 3. The pressure's completely on Mansfield. So, if Stevenage, who aren't got nothing to play for, don't turn up on Friday night and we get the victory we probably should be getting in that game, then it gives them a couple of games to actually sort of sort things out. Cheltenham isn't a difficult one. Last game of the season, Morecambe isn't particularly difficult, so you've got time to try players. I'd definitely bring Maxime in. I just think he's a better player for us than Johnson Clark-Harris. I'm still not convinced that Johnson Clark-Harris thing's been a major success. Nice to see Willis back. How did he play? Because he went off towards the end. Is he okay, or?
Well,
they said it was
if you're Jeff Foster and you ask Mark Robbins that, you get short shrift. He was livid at that question. For the answer, yeah, he was just tired.
That's fine. So, I mean, by the looks of it, we're going in with, there's no one, apart from the people who have been injured for a long period, we're going in with a relatively settled squad, so it's down to us now, isn't it? You couldn't be in a better position with 4 games to go, 3 of them at home. If we fail to get in the playoffs, I think there's got to be serious questions asked. We're in a very strong position. Maybe the system, I said on after Saturday, is it just short term? I suppose the way you look at it is at best we've got 7 games left. If it's a short term situation with 7 games and it wins us enough, who cares?
Yeah, that's fair. Also, carrying on Joey's point, just a sort of positivity side of thing. I mean, when you look at the options we've got in attacking sense, he can flex that quite a bit. And even if he doesn't start with Biamu, and I'm going to go back onto my old subs a good thing, but there's still a lot of value of him coming on for 30, 40 minutes in the second half, just to kind of shock them into life, because he's very different to Clark-Harris, and you can imagine their players getting settled, and then suddenly Biamu coming on, very different. Carl Reed coming on when they're starting to knacker 20 minutes, 30 minutes, very different. And I wouldn't mind seeing Shipley on the pitch again at some point, so we might just get a decent free kick in at any point. Because of all the things that frustrated me at the weekend, our inability to take an even vaguely good set piece, it was just incredibly bad. I mean, everything was overhit. I mean, when you're watching the corner, you just see them just go 10 yards over everybody, and you just sort of think, I mean, first of all, what you're aiming at anyway, for you to be that bad that you're aiming to the back post and then go 10 yards further. But I mean, Shipley's still hit and miss when it comes to set pieces himself, but I wouldn't mind just feeling like we're some sort of a threat from corners or free kicks, because right now the options when it comes to delivery are pretty scarce.
I know this is a well-trodden road for us, but Jordan Shipley presumably his first choice is central midfield, right? Or does anyone have any idea at all what his preferred position is? I just wonder whether this idea that Kelly and Doyle are the natural choice for central midfielders is all that wise when we've got Shipley out of the team. I just think he's been fantastic this tail end of the season, and even just for the delivery, you wonder whether he'd be a better shout than Kelly. And maybe it's a pointless point, because what difference does it make? But I just think we're a better team with him in it. I think he's better on the ball, and I don't know. I'm surprised to see that he's such a. It was so easy to drop him. I don't think I would do. I wouldn't be so quick.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would instead have him on the left. Really, in my mind, I think if we're playing 4-4-2, him on that left-hand side with Haynes behind him is a really workable.
Sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
It is kind of they kind of get each other. Shipley isn't that sort of speed merchant on the left, so it kind of complements him working alongside Haynes. So that's good. I mean, going back to your point about being in the middle, I would like to see how he gets on in the middle. We saw him against Brighton, I think it was, in the middle, and I think he actually looked pretty composed in that match. I think for the final few games, it probably would be a bit of a punt to kind of see how he went, and also, let's face it, Robbins is just mates with Kelly and Doyle, so I think we can establish that those two he'll get them in the team as often as he can. But
I think it's also an experience thing, though, isn't it? Kelly is the experienced campaigner compared to Shipley, and I think he doesn't like having too many youngsters in the side. So for him, it's probably a case of, if I'm having Ponticelli, I will keep Kelly in and not have Shipley.
That's probably
I
fair,
don't want too many 20-year-olds in the side.
And that's a good point, I think. And as well, I think this is something that we've not talked about a great deal this season, but something that we've bemoaned in previous seasons, is that for the last 3, 4, 5 years, it seemed very much like the team has either been 18 years old or 34 years old. And it is notable this season that there's a lot of 25s, and Ron McDonald is a sort of, they're all players that are give or take in the sort of prime of their career. Give sort of with Bayliss, Shipley, Doyle, maybe the outliers. I do think that makes a really big difference. I know it seems like an odd point, because you wouldn't just arbitrarily pick a team of 25-year-olds no matter who they were. But I do think having players that are at the right age and having a good split of ages probably is a really significant thing to do. And that's a very good point, actually, about Kelly. Is experience and wisdom and all that. That's fair enough.
I think.
But bearing that in mind, Kelly was the one who made the worst decision of everyone in that Notts County fuck up 30 seconds after. So experience is valuable, but they still make stupid decisions even if they have got an extra 100 games under their belt.
Yeah, but it's one of those, isn't it? The same with Doyle, the second goal against Yeovil. I think if they didn't make basic errors. Well, it was quite interesting. We had a chat with one of Joey's friends after the game, and it was like, well, why do you think they do make stupid errors? And you look at quite a lot of our first team, most of them have played, okay, take Bayliss and Shipley out, obviously, but the rest, all of them have played the majority of their careers higher in the leagues. There's not one player who spent the majority of his career at League Two. And it's like, well, why are they the players who have come down to this division? It's just like, well, maybe it is that decision making. Maybe the players they played alongside have got more intelligence on the ball or more nous or whatever, and that's the reason that you look at McDonald and you think, from what we've seen, he looks like he could play at League One, but there's a reason he didn't get in Northampton's team, and there's a reason that no one else in League One picked him up. There are reasons that most of these players are at League Two. The same with Kelly, and maybe it is just decision making in critical moments. But the main thing, the other thing that came out of the Crawley game is, while we did throw away the lead again, at least we went on to win it. And from what I understand, from what you were saying, Laurie, basically once we went 2-1 up, it was pretty stress free after that point. So they're a positive to take out the Crawley result, whether or not you think it was the best performance in the world, which you seem to be indicating it wasn't.
Yeah, is it like someone said to me after the game that performances don't matter now, it's just points. And I said, well, I suppose that's true, but also if we play shit and win now, it is an indicator of what is to come. So it's all very well and good winning, but we've potentially going to have two of the hardest games of the season in 4 games time. And if we play awful for 4 games and we kind of do enough to get in the playoffs, I'm still going to feel pretty scared about the playoffs if we haven't played well for that'll be 6 games by that point.
People like that don't want you battering them over the head with details and logic and stuff like that. This is a you wasting your time there. It literally doesn't matter. As long as we get the points, nothing else matters. Brilliant. Like that's that debate resolved completely.
Do you know my final thing on the Crawley game is that I realised with about 10 minutes to go that at most we've got Bayliss for another 7 games ever. Isn't that a sad thought?
I think if we go up, he might stay. He might. I think you could morally make an argument of give us another year, play another 40-odd games in League One.
Yeah.
Before look at George Thomas. Look at Madders had a year where I think people forget that this is his breakthrough season at Norwich, but we sold him 2 years ago or whatever. He went to Norwich and they loaned him out to Aberdeen. It's just, you're probably going to get loaned out somewhere anyway. Hopefully, with Madders going to whoever signs Madders, we're going to get some money from that transfer. Just sort of say, look, give us another year, play another 40, 50 games, and it's not going to do any harm to your career. You're going to make the move anyway because you're clearly good enough. But I agree, if we're in League Two, he'll go. I'm still not sure about McNulty. It'd be interesting to see which League One's clubs come in for him. Me and Joey had a discussion recently. He isn't the top goal scorer in this division. He has played well for periods, but we're on quite a long period where he hasn't scored. And if you're in League One, there are lots of players from divisions above where you can sign as well as divisions below. I think if you score 30 in League Two, there's no question you get signed by someone else. 18 to 20 in League Two, I think there are lots of other options out there.
He's the fifth.
What I would say in
his
his favour is that he basically wasted the first 3 months of the season, didn't he? So maybe they'll look at that because he didn't score for 2 and a bit months. So I know that's not really in his favour. If you know what I mean.
I was going to say it still happened.
No, but as in you know what I mean. His season's condensed. As in from the point he did score, he has looked an excellent player. Maybe that wasn't a very good point, but in my head,
I know exactly what you mean. But I also think he's scored at a rate that's been reasonably consistent with how he's done before. So I think this is going to be his best goal scoring season, but it's not going to be his best goal scoring season by 10 goals or anything, is it? And it probably stands to reason that perhaps that's what he does. Maybe he takes some time to get going, or maybe and this is probably much more realistic, maybe he's patchy. He's been a bit patchy recently, hasn't he? Maybe he's one of them players that, and he's talked about it himself, that he had his confidence shaken a little bit, and then as soon as he got his first proper goals, he went on a run. And it's not a criticism of the player, but if I was a League One club, I would first of all look at the 4 other players who've scored more goals than him in League Two. I'd possibly have a look at Christian Doidge, who scored 1 less in a terrible, terrible Forest Green team. I really hope he stays. I've grown to really like him. I didn't think I would particularly, and I think he's really won me round. I think his attitude is fantastic. I think some of his finishes are way above League Two level, but I don't think if I was a League One club, I'd be absolutely falling over myself to get him. But maybe I'm being harsh on the boy.
Well, he's only scored 3. But he's only scored. I mean, he's scored 3 goals in open play in his last 15 appearances.
Yeah.
And really? How many assists has he got?
It's not that many. I think he's got 3 or 4, and Afin Fenway's got about 12. I know that's a slightly harsh comparison. The only reason I bring that up is because someone went, well, how did Afin Fenway get in the team of the year? He scored 1 less than McNulty. And it's yeah, but he's like been involved in 50% of Wickham's goals or whatever.
But are
He's
his
absolutely
assists
massive.
just when the ball hits him and then someone scores? I don't reckon they're the best. I know they still count, but they're not like him threading like unbelievable passes through a static defence, are they? I'm just guessing, but I imagine most of them are like the Ander Herrera assists, where he just like chests one 25 yards and then someone taps it in.
Listen, I don't think you can argue with a player who can chest the ball 25
yards.
yards.
Isn't it?
Okay, anything else before we move on to some Stevenage preview?
No.
Let's do some Stevenage preview, then we'll beg for votes, and then we've got a little bit of a open training session that the friend of the pod, Rob Jones, has given us some notes from, and that might be it. But first of all, here's Dom. Hello, Dominic. Thanks for joining us.
Hiya, good to be on the show as always.
We've been able to pull ourselves out of the pit of misery that we were in last week because we've had one more win. It's looking pretty good now, isn't it, playoffs-wise?
Yeah, I mean, if we take sort of 73 points as the bar for the playoffs, which it might not be given how tight it is at the moment, but that's 2 wins. That's actually less than 2 wins. It's, well, was it 5 more points? So potentially only need to win 1 or 2 more games, which is a crazy, crazy situation to be in for a Coventry City fan. If, for example, if we win this game against Stevenage, it will be our highest ever point tally, albeit given that some of our best seasons in our history came when it was 2 points for a win.
Wow, that is really astonishing. I didn't realise that. That's a great stat that you've pulled out there. And very much in our hands. Stevenage, not the best team in the world?
Yeah, they've had a really, really disappointing season. I think it was around this time last year, maybe slightly before that, they beat Portsmouth at the Lamptey Stadium, as it's called, down in Stevenage, and they looking like they could even gate crash the automatic promotion race in League Two. I don't know if you remember last season, it was just absolutely wide open, automatic promotion and title and playoffs last season in League Two. And then from that point, from beating Portsmouth, they completely collapsed. They failed to even make the playoffs, but they look to be going in the right direction under Darren Sarll. A lot of young players coming through. They're playing some really nice attacking football at times. Matt Godden banging the goals in. Had Tom Petton, Ben Kennedy on the wings, and Joey McAnuff, and they were just a really good side to watch. And there was high hopes going into this season that they could pick up where they left off, made some relatively decent signings, but despite having a reasonably good start to the season, they just hit a wall at one point and just kept on drawing games, conceding late goals. And Darren Sarll was sacked about a month ago with them looking like a very outside shot for relegation. They've appointed Dino Marmaria, who seems a bit of a character really, seems someone who's very big on motivation. Is a very sort of bright, positive person who had spent first half of this season in charge of Nuneaton, where he was doing a pretty good job. Was having them going from relegation candidates in the National League North to almost on the verge of the playoffs. It was a bit too much work to do in the end, but he took the call to Stevenage because he used to play for them and he used to be Graham Wesley's assistant. He's got a couple of wins. They're looking safe, so now he's just looking at squad.
Very good. So, talking of that squad, who are the players to look out for?
I think the front three look like they're going to cause us the most problems. Got Alex Ravel, who's a very, very good target man, getting on a bit, but he's an absolutely gigantic player, very good in the air, can hold the ball up. And then around him, they'll play Matt Godden, who I mentioned earlier, who was absolutely banging goals in for them last season. Not as prolific this time out, but still a very good finisher. I've also got Danny Newton, who we tried to sign from Tamworth over the summer. He's a very quick and hard-working player. He seems to be sort of a bit like someone like Andy Morrell, but can score some really, really good goals. In midfield, have some really nice technical players, a couple players on loan from Premier League clubs local to them, Arsenal and Spurs. Luke Amos, on loan from Spurs, looks a cut above. Just a very graceful kind of player with good drive to his game. And then you've got Ben Sheaf, who's been playing holding midfield, sort of struggled with the physicality a bit, playing on loan from Arsenal, which isn't a rare thing for a player on loan from Arsenal in the lower leagues, as we've seen. But he's just looks like a very good footballer who's going to have a big career. Probably not at Arsenal, but sort of League One, Championship, will probably be a good player at that level. We've also got Ben Kennedy, also mentioned as well, who's more of an attacking midfielder who for quite a while has been linked to Championship clubs. He can score some really good goals in his day, though he isn't having the best of seasons. But that's sort of contrasted at the back by some just very grizzled veterans. A couple of players left over still from Graham Wesley's era and when they were a non-league club in Ronnie Henry and Fraser Franks. Their centre-back pairing of Luke Wilkinson and Jack King, probably just very agricultural, who we should be looking to exploit for pace. They're not having the best seasons. But in goal, they have a Mill loanee called Tom King, who's having a very good season since arriving on loan from Millwall in January. And he looks like someone who, like a number of other Stevenage players, is going to have a very good career in the game.
Just when you mentioned the fella from Arsenal, it made me think about our recent Arsenal loanees. And of course, Chuba Akpom is the one that immediately comes to mind. Who is he out on loan somewhere at the minute, or?
Yes, he's on loan at STVV, who are, I think, a Belgian second division side.
Oh, well, and it made me realise but it made me remember Connor Henderson as well, who we had briefly in Robbins' first stint. There's 1 million points available if you know where he is at the moment.
Oh God, no idea.
He's a OFC Pirin Blagovgrad. Pirin is a Bulgarian municipal association football club based in Blagovgrad, which currently competes in the first league, the first division of Bulgarian football. So we have found something at least that you don't know.
I know, I'll need to brush up on my English players in Bulgaria.
You mentioned that Dino Mamria had been an assistant to Graham Wesley. Similar in styles, both on and off the pitch, or a different man?
I'm don't know really too much about sort of his approach. I think he has, with Stevenage, just tried to keep up sort of the sort of attacking style of football that they had previously. They've got a lot of good attacking players and don't really have good defenders, so it doesn't really make sense with their current setup to be overly defensive or try and play a cynical game. They've got quite a lot of sort of inexperienced midfielders, and if you want to sort of just kid a game in the way Graham Wesley could be very good at, you've got to have quite a lot of experience in centre of park just to know how to manage the game. I just think at the moment that Mamria is just trying to figure out which players he wants to keep at Stevenage next season, and they are the definition of a team with nothing to play for. They've already secured safety, so as long as we don't give them anything to hold on to here, as I mentioned, Dino Mamria does seem to be quite a good man motivator. I'm sure that he'll want them to get a win here, but I can't imagine that if we take the lead in this game, it's going to be one they're going to go all out for, trying to salvage something from. So it's about really just getting an early goal here and just giving them no reason to believe they can get a result.
So a 6-2 defeat then?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Last time we were in this situation in the home game, obviously it was an absolute catastrophe. But we should be winning here. We should be putting this game to bed. I suppose it just depends on whether the frankly bizarre formation and team selection that Robins used against Crawley, if it's used again, whether that actually is something that can function, or whether it's just too disruptive. Just
before we let you go, because we're recording this before the podcast, and I imagine that we'll be talking about it probably at too much length, but why not throw some more discussion on top of it? What did you think about that team selection?
So I watched the game back on iFollow yesterday, purely, I think, just to try and figure out how that team lined up, because when I saw the lineup, I thought, is that Tom Bayliss and Jordan Ponticelli on the wings? How on earth has Mark Robins concluded that's going to be a team? But as I saw it line up, it was just a really weird system. Regardless, it looked like a 4-2-3-1 with basically Kelly and Doyle almost holding hands for long periods of the games, just sat right in front of the defence. And then you had Tom Bayliss playing about 20, 30 yards ahead, really struggling to get into the game at all. And then you got effectively two strikers on the wings, and in Johnson Clark-Harris, not someone looking to really holding up that effectively. So it just seemed to make it really hard for us at periods just to create chances and actually get our best players on the ball in good positions. But then there was just a period for like 10 minutes before we scored the second goal where we were just piling players into the box, and then we just managed to force something out of that without really having something that should have worked.
And I think the question that we'll aim to answer on the pod, which obviously everybody will have heard by now because this is probably going to be towards the end, is, did we win because of the team or in spite of the team? But who knows? Well, I'm sure we'll discuss that. Right, thank you very much. Speak to you next week.
Right, speak to you then.
Okay, thanks, Dominic. So, yeah, let's do some vote begging first. So, Football Blogging Awards is back. I thought it had gone away for good, but is back, and we would like to be in the final running for the best football podcast round category. And so you can do all of the votes for us. If you have a look on our Twitter page, it's at Lamptey Show. Have a look at the pinned tweet. There's a link on there that you can click on. And all it does is it generates a tweet for you, and then you just hit tweet. I mean, it's a lot of the word tweet there, isn't it? But it's Twitter, isn't it? What would you expect? And you can do that. If you really love us, and there are reasons to love us, we give you hours of, and I'm going to use this term lightly, entertainment for free every month. You could go on their website, footballbloggingawards.co.uk, and fill in their online form, and that does another vote for us. While you're there, you can also vote for some other lovely Cov people. You could possibly vote for two of the gentlemen that are joining me today, in Neil or Laurie. Although saying that, I don't think either of you are actually in the running this year, are you? Well, everyone's in the running if they choose to be, but you two aren't pushing yourselves particularly, are you?
Probably not, no.
No, I think I don't like asking people for stuff.
You're never going to win anything with that, actually.
Joey's obviously got nothing against it, so fair play to him. But
I mean, I'm shameless, aren't I? There's absolutely no two ways about it.
If I win, I want to win on merit.
I don't think you're going to win a merit.
Yeah, because let's be honest here, Laurie.
That's a quote from something, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? What's that from?
What is it?
Is that from The Office?
You're not going to win on merit.
Yeah, it is.
I think
it's Gareth from The Office, isn't
Gareth,
it? Yeah. I knew it was in there somewhere. Just it was natural to say it.
I love how The Office swims through your pores to such an extent that you're accidentally quoting it. But yeah, Football Blogging Awards. You do a vote for us. It's a day out for us, isn't it? We don't get to go out very much, do we? Yeah, there's that. Then finally, we've got some. So Rob Jones, who is our Twitter pal and who we met at Accrington, did we, Paul?
Yes.
Thoroughly nice bloke. He sponsors Jack Grimmer or his son. I think it's Louis. Hi, Louis. sponsors Jack Grimmer, and so they were invited to a open training day type thing on Thursday, and he sent us some notes from that. I'm not going to go through all of them because it's quite extensive, but I thought I'd just lob in some fact grenades for you. He said the morale seemed really high. He said that the banter seemed really good between players and coaches, and I think he's using that in the good way rather than the bad way.
Vincenti locked in a cage somewhere. That's good banter, isn't it?
Well, he goes on to say that all players are at training except for Baker and Vincenti.
Really?
Where is he?
You do. He says that Devon Kelly. He also says that he said that Vincenti's been carrying an injury for most of the season. Apparently,
Lack of talent. Is that an injury? That was a bit harsh. I didn't mean that, Peter.
You bad man. He says that Devon Kelly Evans and Andrew were working on their own with fitness coaches. I didn't realise that Devon Kelly Evans. That suggests to me that he's had an injury for a while.
Yeah.
But or maybe not. But he hasn't said that very explicitly. But you would imagine that. It says on the evidence of training, Johnson, Clark, Harris, and McNulty are the preferred front two. I think that's not too much of a surprise to people. Apparently, there's a lad on trial from Brentford. Was anyone aware of this?
Is this Zane Henderson?
Yeah, didn't he come through Chelsea's youth system?
I mean, that's like saying, doesn't he breathe air? I guess there's... apparently, he is, and this is in capital letters, decent. And
ringing.
And he's Bayliss-esque.
Well, apparently he did have a good game. He played in the home under 23 games last week, and apparently I've seen quite a few people say that he had a good game. And to quote someone who I can't remember who it was, but if you're listening, I'm quoting you. It was nice to finally see a decent trialist. So
that's too much the word decent.
Yeah, so I don't think the other trialists were living up to much. But apparently he looked quite good. I think he's still quite young. So.
Okay. And he says that Robbins fully accepts right midfield has been a problem since Jody Jones got injured. So Vincenti has carried an injury for most of the year. Bayliss is on. Says Bayliss, when on the right, is told to play a little more central than conventional right midfielder in 4-4-2, but still learning. And Robbins has accepted he isn't as effective out there. Probably again not a tremendous surprise. This is the main bit that I wanted to get to. Doyle is unique. He bites the player's head off if they don't show winning mentality at all times. Robin said he is giving up trying to talk to him from Thursday onwards until the day of the match, as he is just in his own zone and angry Michael Doyle.
And he's got some problems, Michael. He needs to sort this out.
Says either gets better. Says demands high standards all the time. Says that he asked, as in Rob asked Robbins. I asked whether the players liked him or are scared of him. Robin said they are scared of him.
No, maybe.
He is unique at this level and a leader and a winner. I mean, it is brilliant, isn't it? The idea. As well, but in that forum, you'd be like, do they see him as a leader or are they scared of him? No, they're scared of him. They're really scared of him. He's mental. He's completely mental, and they're scared of him.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It also
so do you reckon when he made that mistake in the Yeovil game, do you reckon everyone just like kind of silently looked at the floor and was just like, don't say anything?
I reckon I just walked up and went, mistakes happen, Mike. It wasn't your fault. I should have covered for you. But you weren't on the pitch, but I should have covered for you.
I don't know how people don't. You just think that it'd be human nature. I've got a mate who's much harder than I am, and I always try and wind him up and get him chippy, and then he'll hit me or something. And then because you just think, what's the point? You might as well wind people up who are gonna like a challenge. And I'm always surprised that there's not one person when Doyle's really screaming in their face. It's just like Doyle, fuck off. You think there's someone...
You wait till that happens.
There was. His name was Robert Page.
Well, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Robert Page not scared of Michael Doyle for confirmation.
And has the front teeth to show it.
Yeah.
Who won that fight?
Page did.
Did he?
Yeah. I guess, big dude.
I wish Rob Jones had been to that training session.
Yeah, that would have been more interesting. The banter was brilliant until I started knocking Seven Slaves shit out of each other. You should have seen Robert Page right hook.
Do you know what's awesome about Michael Doyle is that even though the whole sort of like narrative here is that Doyle's a lunatic and and blah 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 blah. When you hear that Doyle has been involved in a training ground bust up and someone has had their teeth knocked out, you'd be like, "Well, it's going to be Doyle, isn't it?"
Yeah.
For all, he's like a little angry dog, any where you're like, "Yeah, he's a lunatic," and I wouldn't. But you'd be like, "Do you reckon he's that hard?" You'd be like, "No, not especially. I reckon someone could easily knock his teeth out."
And yet he's got such a sensible haircut. I just don't believe it. He just he used to be like skinhead and everything, and now he's just got the most normal haircut ever. It's like when Roy Keane went normal. There's something weird about it.
I'd love to talk to his
find
partner.
that's really strange. But this is completely off topic, but following your line of thought, I'm amazed that Tom Davis isn't a skinhead. Every time I see him with hair, I always think it's almost like his mom's gone, just grow it for a couple of weeks, see how it looks. And he's gone, "Okay, Mom," and he's just like, but really underneath it all, he's desperate to be a skinhead.
Do you reckon he's nasty? I reckon he looks like a nice lad.
Well, but the way that he plays is he's so
the way that he plays,
full-blooded.
Yeah.
But you're right. Is when you look at him there's a couple.
He was
of players
training at half time and he was giggling and everything, trying shots at the goal. He looked like a little softy.
But there's a couple of players in that squad, and I'm looking specifically, mostly at Davis and Bayliss, who don't look like footballers in the slightest, do they? I'm not having it at all that either of them. Like, if you look through their Twitter feed or whatever, at what they're like in real life, you would never think athlete. And Bayliss is obviously like, and Vincenti, of course. And it's not a criticism of at all, because because actually they're all Bayliss and Davis really fit and strong and athletic and everything. But you look at them and you just think, you sit in a pub. You're not actually. You're not an athlete.
Josh Barrett, who sits in McDonald's.
Again, with the fat shaming of Barrett. Leave him alone.
You body Nazi. I don't know why.
He only looks fat compared to every other professional footballer I've ever seen, other than Mick Quinn.
Imagine if he actually played games. Imagine how much shit you'd give him then. He's barely been on the pitch and he's still copped so much from you, Paul.
It's just because he's so big.
He's
He just
lad.
looks so immobile. It's like he walked on the other week with his shorts, and it's like, dude, you're wearing you're wearing a small man shorts. You've got at least an XL arse. Like,
I think it's the arse. It's the main thing. It's massive.
it is. It really is.
I'm going to go for 2 extra Barrett and McDonald's shouts. 1, he gets a Happy Meal. 2, sits in a high chair when he's there. Just finally on Michael Doyle, Rob said that he asked Robbins if he thought that Doyle could play at League One level, and Robbins said yes, absolutely, but would need legs around him in midfield. I mean, that's presumably Doyle was sat in the room when
he's scared of him as well.
So next season, if we get promoted, we're playing 2-6-2.
I love the idea that, like when Blackpool had to play David Vaughan and that other chap to accommodate Charlie Adam, we're going to play 2 other midfielders so that Doyle can charge around screaming at people. Shanking ball into the stands. He's got 2 players in his legs that he's just shouting at all game. Oh, Michael Doyle. It's been brilliant having Doyle back, hasn't it?
It just answers that question. Like we were saying for years, what we really needed was a Mickey Doyle type player.
Yeah,
actually all we needed was just Mickey Doyle back doing what Mickey Doyle does.
There we go. That seems like a nice positive note to end the podcast on, unless anybody else has got anything to add.
Would that be the saving grace of us not getting promoted, that we could then just have another season of Michael Doyle?
Well, it sounds to me like Doyle's not going anywhere, and I, for one, am all for that. We worked out the other day, didn't we, Paul, that it would be he'd need to do another 2 seasons, wouldn't he? Unfortunately, to get the total 10 years.
Yeah, was it 2 or was it another 1? Yeah, it's around there, isn't it?
I think I was hoping that next year would be 10, and that might mean a Michael Doyle testimonial, but I don't think it is. I think next year would be 9, unfortunately.
Against an 11 of angry dogs.
Another team managed by Robert Page. Oh dear. He's going to kill us, isn't he, Doyle? Yeah, okay.
Imagine listening to a show like this where they go off on one for 15 minutes about how crazy you are. That must be quite a good ego boost if you're crazy.
I imagine he's listening to it in the car and his kids are laughing and his wife's laughing. He's not laughing.
He's turning to his kids going, "You don't find me scary, do you?" Oh, Dad. Oh, you're hilarious, Dad.
Driving the wrong way down the road. Who's scary now?
Dad, why is everyone else on the other side of the motorway? Just shut up. I know what I'm doing.
Oh, dear. If you want to get in touch with us, preferably if you're not Michael Doyle, it's at Neil Lamptey Show on Twitter, and it's neillambteyshow@gmail.com. Don't forget to have a look on the pinned tweet for the Football Blogging Award voting details, and to go on their website and vote for us. We'd greatly appreciated. And that's everything from us this week. We'll be back next week to talk about Stevenage and possibly Lincoln, actually, because it's Friday, Tuesday, isn't it? But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Thank you very much, Neil.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie.
Cheers, Joey.
And before you go, remind us where the blog is.
TheLonelySeason.club. The Crawley review is on there.
Fantastic. And Paul, thank you.
Cheers, buddy.
And that's us out. Bye.